I told you to leave! Out the back door, now!
They told me to wait outside. Deliveries go through the back, the maitre d' sneered, eyeing my worn boots and grease-stained jacket. The whole restaurant turned to watch. Forks paused, whispers rising. A woman in pearls laughed behind her napkin. "Someone get this man off the property," a manager barked, snapping his fingers like I was a stray dog. I didn't argue. I didn't explain who I was waiting for, or why my boots were worn down to the leather. I just stood there, humiliated, while phones came out to film me. Then a sound rattled the windows. Glasses trembled on every table. The hostess froze mid-sentence. Outside, the valet dropped his clipboard and stared at the sky. A helicopter was landing in the parking lot, and every single person inside that restaurant was about to find out exactly who I was. The helicopter's rotors kicked up a storm of napkins and dust across the patio. Inside, every phone swung toward the windows. The manager who'd called me a stray dog now stood frozen, his finger still raised mid-sentence. "Sir, are you?" the maitre d' started, but his voice cracked. A man in a black suit jumped out before the blades even slowed, sprinting across the lot, shouting into an earpiece. He wasn't here for the woman in pearls. He wasn't here for the senator 2 tables over, the one everyone had been fawning over all night. He stopped in front of me, in my worn boots, my grease-stained jacket. "Mr. Calloway," he said, breathless, "we need you back at the site immediately. The East Tower, it's compromised." The restaurant went silent. Forks stopped. The woman who'd laughed behind her napkin lowered it slowly, her face draining of color. Calloway. The name hit the room like a thrown glass. I turned to the manager, who was still holding his clipboard like a shield. "You were saying something about the back entrance?" He said nothing. 3 years ago, I sold my software company for more than this restaurant would make in a decade. I could have bought the building that night just to watch them rehang the sign. I didn't. Money changed something in me. Quietly, permanently. I stopped wearing suits, stopped taking calls from people who wanted a piece of me. What nobody in that restaurant knew, I'd been receiving anonymous warnings for 2 weeks. Someone inside my own company had been emailing me, unsigned, saying check the East Tower before it's too late. I'd dismissed it as a disgruntled employee. Now, with the helicopter waiting and my phone buzzing, that warning didn't feel dismissible anymore. My sister gripped the edge of the table. "Daniel, what warnings? You never told me that." I hadn't told anyone. I'd been too busy building to take it seriously. "I think I just made a mistake," I said, standing. Behind me, the maitre d' was still stammering an apology I wasn't listening to. The real danger wasn't in this room. It was 3 miles away, and I'd ignored it for 2 weeks. "The East Tower? It's compromised," the aide repeated, lower this time, like he didn't want the room to hear. Too late. Half the restaurant was already leaning in. "Compromised how?" I asked. "Structural inspector flagged the support beams an hour ago. Crews refusing to keep working until someone signs off on an emergency shutdown. If we don't move fast, the city pulls our permit at sunrise, and 200 families lose their move-in date." My stomach dropped. Those families had already given notice on their old apartments. Some had nowhere else to go. "Get the car," I said. That's when the manager finally found his voice again. "Mr. Calloway, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Please, let me comp your table. Anything you didn't misunderstand anything," I said, quieter than he expected. "You saw boots. You made a decision. That's not confusion. That's character." The woman in pearls stood abruptly, smoothing her dress like she could iron away what she'd done. "I didn't mean," she started. I held up a hand, not out of anger. I genuinely didn't have time. My sister grabbed my arm. "Go," she said. "I'll handle the table. Go save your building." I turned for the door, and that's when my phone buzzed. A text from the site foreman, all caps. One of the crew is still inside. We can't find him. The aide's face changed. He hadn't known that part yet either. Suddenly, the helicopter outside wasn't dramatic. It was the only thing fast enough to matter.
The restaurant had gone silent in a way I'd never experienced. Not awkward silence, but the kind that comes when people realize they misjudged something badly. My sister's hands were shaking as she pulled out her own phone, calling our mother, whispering, "You won't believe what just happened." The maitre d' hadn't moved from where he stood, his earlier sneer completely gone, replaced by something closer to dread. He kept glancing between me and the helicopter, like he was trying to rewrite the last 10 minutes in his head. An older man at the bar, I recognized him as a local contractor I'd worked with before, stood up and called across the room, "That's Daniel Calloway. He built the Ridgeway housing project. My nephew lives there." Heads turned toward him, then back to me, recalculating everything. The woman in pearls sat frozen, her earlier laugh now visibly haunting her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The aide tugged my sleeve. "Sir, the car's outside. We need to go now." I nodded, already moving, my mind no longer on the restaurant at all, only on the foreman's text, and the worker still unaccounted for inside that tower. The drive to the site took 11 minutes. The aide spent every one of them on the phone, piecing together what had happened. "The inspector flagged beam supports on the 3rd floor," he said. "But here's the thing. Those beams passed inspection 2 weeks ago. Someone signed off on them." "Who?" He hesitated. "Foreman's pulling the paperwork now." That hesitation told me everything. This wasn't bad luck. Someone had cut a corner, or worse, been paid to look away. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the foreman. "Found him. He's trapped, not injured. Stairwell collapsed behind him." I exhaled for the first time since leaving the restaurant. "Trapped, not hurt," I said out loud, mostly to steady myself. The aide kept scrolling. "There's more. The inspection report from 2 weeks ago. It's not in our system. It's been deleted." That stopped me cold. Inspection reports didn't just vanish. Someone had gone in and erased it on purpose. "Find out who had access," I said. As the helicopter lights came into view ahead, lighting up the unfinished tower like a warning beacon, I realized the missing report wasn't an accident. Someone wanted this building to fail. The site was chaos when we landed. Floodlights, a fire crew working the collapsed stairwell, families from the finished buildings standing behind the barricades, some of them crying, others filming. I pushed through to the foreman. "Talk to me." "He's stable. We can hear him. Getting him out's going to take another 20 minutes, maybe less." That's when I saw her, Marissa, the site safety officer, standing off to the side, arms crossed, refusing to make eye contact. She'd been with the project since the first building broke ground. "Marissa," I walked toward her. "The inspection report, the one that's missing. You signed off on the original beams." Her composure cracked instantly. "Daniel, I can explain." "Then explain." "Your investor, Holbrook, told me to approve it without the full inspection. Said you were behind schedule, that delays were costing him money. I thought it was a formality. I didn't think..." Her voice broke. "I didn't think anyone could get hurt. Holbrook, my own financial partner, the man who'd sat across from me in dozens of meetings, smiling, talking about shared values. Behind us, a cheer erupted. The trapped worker was being pulled free, alive, exhausted, but alive. Relief and fury hit me in the same breath. Didn't yell at Marissa. Yelling wouldn't undo what almost happened. "You're suspended tonight. Write down everything Holbrook said to you, word for word, for my lawyer." She nodded, crying, and walked off, but stopped halfway to her car. "Daniel, wait." He wasn't acting alone. There was someone else pushing him. "Someone on your board." My stomach turned. "Who?" I don't know the name. He never said it directly, but he mentioned protecting the investment from the inside. A board member. Someone I trusted with quarterly reports and handshake meetings. The aide held out his phone. Holbrook's called 4 times. Not yet, I said, my mind already racing through every face on that board. I walked toward the rescued worker, wrapped in a blanket, and crouched beside him. You're going to be okay. Everything's covered. He nodded weakly. Thank you, Mr. Calloway. I meant every word, but part of me was already elsewhere, calculating who else had known and how long they'd been watching me from inside my own company. A week later, Marissa's statement triggered an internal audit. Holbrook was removed, but the audit uncovered something else. A second set of falsified records, signed off by someone whose initials didn't match anyone on my current staff list. Someone had been inside my company longer than Holbrook had even been involved. The East Tower passed inspection. Families moved in on schedule, just like I'd promised. I went back to that restaurant once. The maitre d' stiffened when he saw me. I just asked for a table for 2. The woman in pearls stopped me on my way out. I think about that night a lot, she said. I'm sorry. You don't owe me an apology, I told her. You owe it to the next person you almost judge. I walked out into the evening air. Boots on pavement. No helicopter this time. My phone buzzed once more. A new email. Unsigned. Just like the others. You found Holbrook. You haven't found me yet. I stopped walking.